Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another edition of Short and Sweet. My name is Jose Moreno. I'm an associate consultant with Concentrus. And today what I wanted to show you guys is WMS cycle counts using NetSuite WMS. So there are two ways to do cycle counts in NetSuite WMS. The first one is what we call a WMS cycle count, right? And then you have the latest and greatest, which is what we call WMS Smart Count. So for today's video, I'm going to show you how you can do cycle counts through WMS cycle counts. And in a future video, I'll be showing you how to do WMS Smart Count counts. So the two tools are pretty different. And I think the best way to show you the differences is to actually show you what the process it looks like, right? So for this one, we're going to look at WMS cycle counts. Without further ado, let's jump right into it. So the first thing here, you can see I'm in NetSuite. I'm using a demo account, and I have the WMS Warehouse Manager role right now. And the first thing we do with this process is we create what we call a WMS Cycle Count Plan record, right? So if I go to WMS Inventory Cycle Count, I will go to create cycle count plans, right? And here I'll click New. Right, so here really what we're doing is we're defining a template through which NetSuite WMS is going to create the actual cycle count tasks for us, right? So here we're telling NetSuite, hey, NetSuite, this is how I want you to create those cycle count tasks. This is what you're going to create the cycle count tasks for. Right, so the first thing we do is we give this cycle count plan a name, so you can have multiple cycle count plan names. You're not limited to one. And this will typically just be something to help you identify it in a list of cycle count plans. So you can think of anything you can think of and just add it, have that as a name. So for our demonstration, we'll do sample count for short and sweet. Right. Next thing I do is I'll set my subsidiary, and I'll set a location, which is going to be US1. That's the location I'm working out of. And then the next thing I do is I select the geo account that's going to be impacted from any inventory adjustments that are created from cycle count records, right? So if we, let's say we approve a count and we're approving an overage, or we're approving, coming under on inventory, right? NetSuite will post an inventory adjustment to reconcile that inventory. So when it does that, it's going to impact, it's going to impact this geo account. Right, so very important. And then the next thing is I have an option to actually assign it to someone, right? So you can think of, if you have multiple operators working in different parts of the warehouse, right, the assign to field can help you segregate how those tasks are created. Right, for here, if I leave it empty, it's going to go first come, first serve. As I scroll down, I have other parameters I can set, right? So these are all fields on the item record here, and then I can also filter for specific items. So what I'm telling here is if I pick an item, I can have NetSuite go and create cycle count plans for those items, including all bins where that item is being stored under. Right, next thing I can do is I can specify a zone, an aisle, or bins. Right, so as you can see here, there are multiple ways for us to sort of slice and dice how we want these tasks to be created. Very, very robust. Right, so what I'll do here is I'm going to actually release the task by bin. So I'm going to pick these two bins for now, and then I'll click Save. Right, so once our cycle count plan is created, next thing we have to do is to actually create cycle count records, right? So these are going to be the actual inventory count records that we want NetSuite to create. So we're going to go to WMS Inventory, Cycle Count, Generate Cycle Count from Plan. And then here I will pick that cycle count plan we just created. I have an option to specify a count start date or a count end date. Once I'm ready, I click display. And what happens here is NetSuite pulls up that cycle count plan and gives us a list of bins and item combinations that are eligible for us to be able to create count records for. So you can see here, if you recall, initially when we created the cycle count plan, we specified 2 bins, right? Here you can see we only have 1 bin. That's because the first bin we specified does not have any inventory as far as NetSuite is concerned, right? From a systemic standpoint, the second bin does have inventory and it does have that item in that bin, right? So we can actually count and create a task for this, right? So once I select that, I can specify a person to assign the task to. Otherwise, if I leave it blank, it's going to be first come, first serve. So once I'm ready, I'll click generate and release. Once I do that, the record is created. The next step is for us to actually start the count. So we can do that by clicking the start count button. Right, so once I do that, I, as the warehouse manager, am taken to the inventory count record. And then here we can actually review some of the records or some of the information that is brought over from the cycle count plan. So you can see the location is set for us. The account is set for us. We have the bin and then the item that is in that bin, right? So from this point, the inventory count has been started, meaning we can actually hand this off to an inventory accounting operator, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump into WMS Mobile, right? So now I'm taking the role of the warehouse operator who, with my handheld, I'm going to go into the WMS application, right? The warehouse is automatically set for me. And then I'm going to go into inventory, cycle count, and then underneath that, I'm going to see the cycle count plans that are open, that are waiting to be counted. So you can see the cycle count plan we just created is right here, and we can pick it from our list. So I'll do that. And so once I do that, I will have a list of tasks, right? So this is going to be a list of things to count. So I only have the one here, but the first thing I do is I'll click the bin. Right, so I'm starting this task, and once you start a task, the first thing you do is you scan the bin. Once you scan the bin, the next thing you do is you scan the item. And then once you've scanned the item, the next thing is to actually enter the count quantity. So you can see here, NetSuite WMS uses a blind count. Typically, that's what you want to see, right? You want the operator to go physically out to the warehouse, out to that bin, and perform a blind count. That way you can get a true, honest count of what's actually physically in the warehouse. Now, for this one, I don't actually know what we have in the system, so I'm just going to enter a number. Let's say 200. Once I do that, the cycle count is complete, and I can move on to the next plan. So you can see here, we don't have any other tasks, right? But here at this point, the cycle count is still in progress, right? So the next step is for the warehouse manager to close the count. But up until they do that, I, as the warehouse operator, can go back to that count task and recount it if I need to. So for example, let's say I made a mistake. Maybe I miscounted or I entered the wrong information in the handheld. I can go back to that task and redo that count task. Right, I'm not going to do that here in this case, but they do have the option to do that any point up until the task is closed. If we go back into NetSuite and I refresh the screen, right, so I'm taking my role as warehouse manager back, we can see it's been started. You can see here at this point, the operator has counted 200, so that is recorded in the system. Once I'm ready to close this count, I can hit complete count. So once the count is completed or closed, it moves to the next stage, which is the review stage. right? So once I do that, NetSuite will actually show me on this same line, it will show me what the snapshot quantity was, right? So this is one detail that's very important here with cycle counts. With cycle counts, they are snapshot based. So when you create an inventory count, NetSuite is going to take a snapshot of inventory, and it's going to use that as the basis to compare against whatever was counted in the warehouse. So you can see the system says, I am expecting you to have 488. And we can see here the operator counted 200. And the adjusted quantity is 288. Right, so if I approve this inventory count, NetSuite is actually going to create an inventory adjustment to resolve that count discrepancy. Right, so here I have two options. I can approve the count as it is, or I can reject it. If I reject it, that moves the inventory count back into a started phase, which means the warehouse operator can go back and count it again. So to show you the full process here, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to approve. Typically here, if I had a discrepancy that resulted in me being under inventory, I would reject that and we would recount it. But for this exercise, I'm going to approve it just so you can see how the solution works. So I'll click approve. Right, so this one's been approved. And once I do that, NetSuite is actually going to post an inventory adjustment to resolve the variance. So I can go to history, inventory adjustments, and you can see here there's an inventory adjustment that I can click through and review. So you can see here our adjustment count is set, right? That comes from the cycle count plan. And then underneath that, you can see that the item was adjusted in that bin. So if I click the inventory detail, you can see this is the bin we counted that item in. And because we said we only had 200 in that bin, NetSuite did post an adjustment to resolve that discrepancy. All right, so that is the process in a nutshell. We hope you found this video helpful. In the next video, I'm going to show you how what the WMS Smart Count process looks like. But in any case, if you enjoyed this video, if this video was helpful to you, if you have any questions, please feel free to drop them down in the comments. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe. Thank you.